June 2026, Taipei, Computesk. Jensen Huang walked on the stage in his signature leather jacket. The venue was packed. The live stream had millions watching. He didn't talk about quarterly earnings. He didn't talk about stock price. He talked about what comes next. He unveiled Rubin, the platform that succeeds Blackwell, a new Vera CPU, unveiling 6 connecting GPUs directly to the fabric, a compute board with 6 trillion transistors, over 18,000 components, on one board, 3nm process, HBM4 memory, an entire AI platform, not just a GPU. And then he put up a slide, a roadmap, a brand new product family, desktop, laptop, workstation. 100% of the PC industry has joined NVIDIA to reinvent the computer. Every generation. He called it the beginning of the new line. And then he said the number that made the entire industry stop.
Per watt is your revenues. Choosing the wrong architecture just because the chips are cheaper doesn't translate, doesn't make sense.
That like King, Blackwell just started shipping. The chip every AI company on Earth is fighting to get their hands on. And Huang is already standing on stage, telling the world, that's not the one you want, this is. He also showed something no one expected, a fully autonomous factory, digital twins of entire manufacturing floors running on Omniverse, robots trained in simulation, then deployed to the real world. Partners simulated the power, the cooling, the network before a single rack lands. They validated every interrogation in a digital twin. DSSOS takes over. It was NVIDIA becoming the operating system for AI factories. And he said something that was not about chips at all. This is how intelligence is made. A new kind of factory, generator of tokens, the building blocks of AI. AI factories, not data center, not cloud, factories producing something that has never been mass-produced before, intelligence. The message was unmistakable. Blackwell is not the peak, it's the baseline, the starting line. For every company hoping NVIDIA would slow down, that Tuesday was a very bad day for anyone betting against NVIDIA. For Jensen Huang, it was just another day at the office. The man who was once laughed at for betting his company on technology nobody wanted, CUDA, just told the world, the bet is still on, and it's getting bigger. But to understand what he announced that day, you have to understand what happened 30 years ago, in Dallas, in Silicon Valley, with $40,000 between 3 people. NVIDIA spent 20 years betting on technology nobody asked for. That technology now powers every AI model on Earth. This is not a cheap story. This is the question. What happens when you bet everything on something the world doesn't want, and then the world changes its mind? This is the story of a company that bet everything on a question nobody was asking and become worth $3 trillion. 1993, a Denny's restaurant in Silicon Valley, 3 men in the booth. Jensen Huang, 30 years old, Taiwanese immigrant, former AMD chip designer and ASI logic salesman, 2 engineers from Sun Microsystems. Between them, less than $40,000. The idea, building graphic chips. Over 20 companies were already doing it, one die every few months. They didn't even have a company name. The project code was NV, Next Division. 1995, first product, NV1, almost a perfect chip. One problem, nobody wanted. It used its own graphic standard. The entire industry had standardized on Microsoft DirectX. Developers couldn't use it. Game won't run. Company burned nearly all its cash. Couldn't make payroll for 40 people. Huang laid off half of the company, down to the bone. But NVIDIA don't stop, because it almost didn't make it to the starting line. 1997, desperate. Huang bet the company again. One chip, one shot. River 128, 6 months from concept to production. They didn't have time to fix everything. They just had to ship something that worked. It worked. River 128 shipped. Sold over 1 million units in 4 months. Generated enough cash to keep the lights on. NVIDIA survived. But survival is not the same as winning. Huang saw what nobody else saw. The GPU was not a graphic card. It was a computer. A parallel computer. And parallel computing was the future. 1989, GeForce 256. The world's first GPU. Not a faster graphic cards, a new category, hardware transform and lightning, programmability, a chip that didn't just draw pictures, it computed. NVIDIA now had a real business, a growing one, revenue climbing. Every gamer wanted GeForce, every PC maker wanted NVIDIA inside. Most people would stop here. Good GPU company, a few million cars a year, a few $1 billion market cap. Huang thought something was wrong, not with the company, with the question. The problem, selling graphic cards to gamers is a great business, but there is a ceiling. Only so many people on Earth play video games on expensive PCs. What if a GPU could compute anything? Then NVIDIA's market is not gaming. It's everything that needs computing. In 2006, he placed the bet. 2006, NVIDIA launched CUDA. CUDA lets programmers use GPUs for any computation, scientific research, weather modeling, drug simulation, oil exploration. The response? Silence. No customers, no market, no revenue for 10 years. Wall Street called it a $3 billion silence project. Investors demanded Huang kill it. Every quarter, why are you spending this money? Billions on something with no customers, no market, no competitors even bothering to try. Before 2012, this was just a phase. Zero evidence he was right. For 2012, University of Toronto, a graduate student named Alex Krzyzewski and his advisor Jeffrey Hayton entered an image recognition competition. They used the two NVIDIA GTX 580s gaming cards, trained a neural network for a week. It crushed every competitors, academia, Google, everyone. Error rate 15.3%, next best 26.2%, not close. AlexNet did not make CUDA a success overnight, but it proved something that had been unprovable. Neural networks on GPUs worked, not in theory, on a benchmark, against the best in the world. Once researchers saw it, they could not say it. 2013, more papers, more GPUs. Caffe, the deep learning framework, spread through academia. Google, Facebook, Baidu started buying NVIDIA cards in bulk, now hundreds, thousands. 2014, Google acquired DeepMind. Facebook launched Fair. Every major AI lab standardized on CUDA. The switching cost was now zero, because there was nothing to switch to. 2015, ResNet, a neural network 152 layers deep, trained on NVIDIA GPUs, error rate 3.6%, better than human vision. 2016, Huang had delivered the first DGX-1 to OpenAI, a $129,000 AI supercomputer, 8 GPUs, the most powerful AI computer of its time. He signed with the Sharpie to Elon and the OpenAI team to the future of computing. Elon Musk had co-founded OpenAI less than a year earlier. Huang saw where this was going before almost anyone. AlexNet was the match, CUDA was the gas online, but it took another 6 years for the fire to catch. Huang never stopped making faster GPUs. AlexNet used GTX 580s, ResNet used Tesla K80s, OpenAI wanted DG1s. Every breakthrough demanded more compute. Huang's answer never changed. You focus on AI. I will handle the chips. November 30, 2022, OpenAI released ChatGPT. 5 days, 1 million users, 2 months, 100 million, fattest product adoption ever. Every tech company on Earth realized the same thing at the same moment. We need GPUs, now, all of them. NVIDIA's data center revenue exploded, $3.6 billion to $47.5 billion in 2 years. Market cap, $300 billion to $3 trillion, briefly passed Apple for #1 globally. Huang waited 20 years, the $30 billion invested in CUDA, a rounding error against the 1 quarter in 2023. Which brings us back to that Tuesday in Taipei, but this time, you know what it took to get there. 30 years, 3 men in a Denny's, a bet nobody wanted, a decade when everyone said he was wrong, and here he stood, on the biggest stage in computing, telling the world, we're just getting started. The question is no longer whether NVIDIA can build a fattest chip. The question is whether anyone can stop them from building everything else. But 3 mountains still stand. Mountain 1, customers becoming competitors. Google TPUs, Amazon Trainium, Microsoft Maya, Meta MTIA. Every generation gets better. The day good enough arrives. NVIDIA's price powers cracks. Mountain 2, China cutoff. Once 20 to 25% of data center revenue, now single digits. The H20, a neutral chip at 50% of H100 performance. Chinese customers are not buying. Every quarter, that revenue bleeds away into Huawei's Essence Chips. Mountain 3. The AI bubble question. OpenAI burns $5 billion a year. Anthropic burns billions while generating under $1 billion revenue. If the market ever asks, can AI actually generate returns? Every GPU order gets caught. The quarter will be ugly. But Huang doesn't seem worried. His logic, laid out at Compute Task, is unchanged. You can doubt AI, you can wait, but if you believe even 50%, you buy NVIDIA, because nobody else on Earth delivers compute at this scale. This is the mode, not the chip, the system, the software, the 20-year lead in CUDA, the millions of developers who have never used anything else. This is not the ending Huang imagined in that Denny built 30 years ago, but the bet he placed in 2006 has grown into the most valuable company on Earth. The most interesting part is not the ending, it's those 10 years, when everyone said he was wrong, and he kept going, not because he knew the answer, because he asked the right question. What else can a GPU do, besides games? At Compute Test 2026, he answered it again. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more deep dives.